What would you do if the only person who believed in your dream never got to see it come true? This is the story of Marco and a notebook he almost threw away. There is a smell that never leaves you. Fresh bread in the early morning, flour on warm hands, the sound of an oven door closing softly like a secret being kept. Marco knew that smell before he knew anything else. He grew up in it. His father, Lino, was not a famous man. He was not rich. He was not powerful. He was a man who woke up at 4 a.m. every single morning and made bread. Not for a bakery, not for a business, just for the neighborhood. He would bake 24 loaves every Sunday and leave them on doorsteps before anyone woke up. No note, no name, just bread, warm and real and quietly given. Marco would sometimes wake up early enough to watch him, his father's hands moving through the dough with a kind of peace that Marco never saw anywhere else. "Papa, why do you do this?" His father smiled without looking up. "Because everyone deserves to wake up to something good, figlio." Marco was 9 years old. He never forgot it. Lino died on a Wednesday. Marco was 26. No warning, no goodbye, just a phone call, and then a world with a permanent hole in it. Going through his father's things, Marco found a small, worn notebook. Inside, in his father's handwriting, was a floor plan, a small one, 4 tables, a counter, a big oven in the back, and at the top of the page, in his father's careful letters, Lino's, bread for everyone. His father had been planning a bakery for years and never got to open it. Marco sat on the floor of his father's kitchen, held that notebook, and made a decision. He was going to open that bakery, not for himself, for Lino. The first time, he found a small space in the old part of the city, signed the lease, spent 4 months renovating it himself on weekends, bought second-hand equipment, learned his father's recipes from memory and instinct, and 3 weeks before opening, the building was sold. New owners, new plans. Marco's lease terminated. He stood on the pavement outside the empty space and looked at the door he had painted himself. Then he went home, and the next morning he started looking for another space. The second time, he found a partner, a childhood friend named Sal, who had money and enthusiasm and big ideas. Together, they found a better location, better equipment, better everything. 6 months in, Sal met a woman in another city and left, just like that, taking his investment with him. Marco was left with half a bakery and all of the debt. He sat in that half-finished kitchen, his father's notebook open on the counter, and for the first time, he thought about stopping. Maybe this is not meant to be. Maybe I am not the right person for this. Maybe Papa's dream was just that, a dream. He closed the notebook and did not open it again for 8 months. Those 8 months were the quietest of Marco's life. He worked a warehouse job. He paid his debts slowly. He did not bake, not once. He told himself he was being practical, but the truth was simpler than that. He was grieving, not just his father anymore, but the version of himself that still believed. One evening, Marco was cleaning out a drawer and found something he had forgotten, a folded piece of paper, old and soft from being handled. He opened it. It was a note in his father's handwriting. He did not remember putting it there. He did not remember where it came from, but there it was. 4 words, just 4. Il pane si fa. The bread gets made. Marco stared at those 4 words for a long time. It was something his father used to say on hard mornings, on mornings when the dough didn't rise, on mornings when nothing worked. Il pane si fa. No matter what, the bread gets made. Marco folded the note carefully, put it in his shirt pocket, close to his chest, and the next morning he baked. The 3rd time, Marco did everything differently. Smaller, no partner, no investor, no grand opening, just a tiny space, barely big enough for 4 tables and a big oven. He opened on a Tuesday morning, no announcement, no social media. He just unlocked the door, put the bread in the window, and waited. The first customer was an old woman who smelled the bread from the street. She came in, looked around at the simple space, and said, "Finally, real bread." She came back the next day, and the day after that. She brought her sister. Her sister brought her neighbor. Word moved the way good things move, quietly, honestly, from one person to another. 1 year later, Marco's bakery had a line out the door every Sunday morning, not because of advertising, not because of a viral moment, because the bread was real, because the space was warm, because Marco remembered what his father taught him before he knew what teaching was. Everyone deserves to wake up to something good. One Sunday morning, a young man came in and sat at the corner table. He looked the way Marco had looked 8 months into his silence, hollow, tired, carrying something heavy and invisible. Marco brought him coffee and bread without being asked. The young man looked up surprised. "I didn't order anything." Marco smiled. "I know." He went back behind the counter and kept making bread. My friend, Marco did not succeed because he was talented. He did not succeed because he was brave. He did not succeed because he had the right connections or the right timing or the right anything. He succeeded because of 4 words written in a worn notebook by a man who never got to open his own bakery, but whose dream lived on in flour-covered hands and an oven that still burns at 4 a.m. Il pane si fa. The bread gets made, no matter what. Here is what Marco's story quietly teaches us. The dream does not belong to the person who had it first. It belongs to the person who refuses to let it die. Your father's unfinished dream, your mother's quiet hope for you, the version of yourself at 19 who believed in something before the world talked you out of it. That dream is still alive. It has been waiting in a worn notebook, in a folded note, in the smell of something that never quite left you. And here is your invitation, not a challenge with steps, not a 30-day plan, just this. Find the thing you stopped believing in, the thing you put down because it got too hard, or too expensive, or too lonely, or because someone left, or because the building got sold, or because 8 months passed and you told yourself it was over. Find it, pick it back up, not because success is guaranteed, not because it will be easy this time, but because somewhere, someone who loved you believed you were the one who could carry it. Don't let the last thing that happened to you be the last thing. Il pane si fa. The bread gets made. And so do you. Subscribe to Dragonfly Whisper. Every week, we come back to the truth, one whisper at a time.